Hello and welcome to an exciting, fun-filled Prepper Talk Radio. Let's start that over. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Prepper Talk Radio with Scott, Shane, and Paris in the house. How's it going, guys?
Going good.
Good as we expected, I guess.
Right? Well, it's funny because right now we're going to cover some really crazy things tonight, but like there's a lot going on in the world. We've got a shortage of antibiotics. So you guys, if you're listening, make sure you head over to jasemedical.com, sign up, order their Jase case, use the code PrepperTalk and save $10 because with the shortages in antibiotics, you need to have something ready and available as soon as you guys are sick, as soon as something's going on. You don't want to like have to try to order it or hope that they have prescriptions available. Go order it now. It'll get to you in the next couple of days after that. We have ours. I love mine. I've used it. I can't say enough good things about Jase case. But go to jasemedical.com, use the code PrepperTalk. Harris is holding his up. You'll save $10. It is a phenomenal deal. 5 different antibiotic sets. So with that, we're also doing a contest right now. Make sure you're following us on Facebook in our group, our emergency prep and self-reliance, and that you're also following us on YouTube because we're going to do a YouTube giveaway once we break 1,000 new subscribers. So we're getting close. We're really close there. So just hang on, stick with us. We're about there. Probably by the end of the month, we will be making that announcement. So 5 ounces of silver and another Jase case for whoever wins.
There and I just there it is.
There's a silver here.
I was just going to say, I've been getting emails from Jase case about educational things that they're doing. So that's really cool because not only do they provide the product or service, but then they're also giving a great education on different things that are going on with how to use the antibiotics and other things that are involved, like different diseases, different things to, holistic approaches and just different other cool things. So Jase is really doing a good job. They're stepping up. I like it.
I love it. Yeah. They've been doing a lot more awareness education, helping people really understand what's going on, how to be ready at a moment's notice, when to apply different types of medications. It's phenomenal.
I'm happy with mine. You already used mine as well. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Not nice.
I had a few extra things that I had ordered from, outside of the country. Let's just say, I think India might have been involved, some pharmacy. Anyways, I ordered some things before I knew about Jase case. I ordered some things from somewhere else and got a bunch of. I had a stash, so I have a stash of some things, and then my Jase case added to that. So I've been using the older stash first, and then the newer as you rotate. Use the older stuff first. And then once that clears out, then you replace it with new stuff. And so I've been I've had to use that a couple of times with some different infections and different things that have happened up in our family. So good to be able to have things like that. And then, a lot of people are nervous and they say, well, I don't know how to administer that. Like a doctor should administer that. Like what's going on? Well, that's one of the cool things about Jase case is that they have this cool booklet that you get along with it. And I'll show you here in a sec that, this booklet here literally tells you exactly how to administer those things and why and for how long and the different symptoms. And it's literally something that you can use. And we had the doctor on here. I think it was episode 180. It was 180 and change, I think. And he's the one that started it. And he's like, look, if people just follow what we wrote that book, we literally wrote the book for the standard layperson to be able to understand and how to administer these prescriptions to themselves. So I think it's excellent.
Yeah, I agree. I'm stoked about mine. Like my wife and I both got sick, and we were both had the same thing. Called the doctor, and they're like, "Yeah, it'll be a couple days before we can get your prescription." We use the medications in our pouch, and we've got replacements already in there. And that's the whole idea about it: is like use what you have in there and get it refilled with a normal prescription, and that way it never really nothing ever expires that way. Right. You just keep recycling your first in, first out. You just keep rolling through and keeping updated on it. So it just comes in so handy. It's so helpful to have. So guys, make sure you go get yours, jasemedical.com, and get yourself the $10 off with Prepper Talk as your promo code. So in addition to, just knowing that antibiotics are getting shorter and shorter supply. We're having harder issues with supply chain. Tonight we wanted to talk about, or today we want to talk about, whenever time you're listening to this, the big picture, understanding what's going on, knowing what to like pay attention to versus what not to worry about. You know, if you've been paying attention to us, you'll know we're no longer conspiracy theorists. We are conspiracy realists, I guess you could say, or coincidence theorists is the newest phrase. Have you guys heard that one yet?
No, haven't. That's no
coincidence. It's just a coincidence that people are starting to die from sudden adult death syndrome, you know, and other weird, wild things after getting, you know, juiced up on something with you know.
Well, I've taken on the title of apocalyptimist.
Oh,
see, there's apocalypse here, and you know I'm optimistic, and part of that comes from my preparedness, you know. And we know, we've always said this a bunch of times. We know how this ends, right? So I'm very optimistic. So I'd like to keep the smile on, even when I'm talking about, you know, heavy topics, right? So don't take my smile or my pleasing demeanor to, I guess, cause you to not prepare, right? I've noticed that people who ask me for advice, if I'm not somewhat doomsday with them, they won't do anything, right? If I'm too optimistic, if I'm too, you should start slowly jump in and do it now, right? That's my apocalypse side, but I'm very optimistic. So apocalyptimist.
That's awesome, dude.
Hold on. What? So I want to make sure I spelled it right.
Yeah, we're gonna put that in the notes. We're gonna create a spelling and we'll put it in the notes.
Okay, here's the actual definition.
There you go.
Someone who knows the world is spiraling into darkness, but knows without a doubt that God wins in the end, and chooses God above all others. Right?
Is that the right spelling that I used down there?
No Y. APOCALOPTIMIST.
So it's to be more optimist.
Got it.
Okay.
The last of the word is optimist. OPTIMIST, and APOCAL, optimist.
That's awesome.
Apocalyptimist. I don't even know.
No why. Just forget.
I know. I keep trying to save it, and it doesn't. There we go. How's that?
Apocalyptimist. Yes. No. The O needs to be an I. And optimist. Optimist.
TIMIST.
Yeah, there you go. TIMIST.
So
I'm not
speaking
even
of
trying to. I'm just going to.
Speaking of some of that nonsense.
Want me to put it in there?
Yeah, you do it, because I'm like, I don't know how you're believing in this or what. See, I'm. You're the most doomsday in our group.
No doubt.
You know, I'm the middle ground guy, but I actually really agree with what you're saying there, but I just can't spell right now. I'm still getting over the flu, and my asthma's been crap for days. And I'm coming off an 11-hour shift doing my deliveries. It's crazy. Like with the weather.
You worked 11 hours today?
Oh yeah, it sucked.
Oh dang.
It's the great thing is I got about 6.5 miles in today, which is
nice.
A good day. Not my 12 that I used to get, but today was a busy day. I had to go rescue a couple other drivers who got behind, and yeah, it's just nuts. If you're not staying physically active, you're not ready. Like that is, I think, one of the biggest things. To be prepared, like understanding the big picture, we'll get into that in a second, but like to get into the ready-mindedness, to get prepared, if you're not physically fit or at least active on a daily basis, you are in for the worst nightmare of your life when crap goes sideways.
I was actually listening to a Buddhist monk, I think. He was I don't know what kind of a monk he was, but he was a monk, and he was doing a TED talk, and he was talking about how it's no wonder there's so much depression and anxiety and so many people that are just feeling like the world is overwhelming and mental health issues, because nobody gets up off of their couch and goes and uses their body anymore.
Yep.
He says cavemen, they were never depressed because they were working too much to get depressed. They were using their body. They were lifting and moving and farming. Even less than 100 years ago, we had farming and agriculture as a major. When the Industrial Revolution came in, we had people working, and just the idea of moving your body gives you a mental health that's stronger. So, and every one of us will agree that if you want to survive a stressful situation, like an emergency, like a natural disaster, or like a job loss or anything else, you got to have mental toughness. And mental toughness comes and it is built in part by physical toughness. And so I agree with you 100%, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like I don't meet as many preparedness people out there on the daily like I used to. And when I did, they were all, and I mean, I'm guilty. I was super guilty at the time, but I'm guilty. Like, they were all super out of shape. And they're like, oh, I got enough food to survive anything. I'm like, for someone else, like, you've got enough food for someone else to survive anything. Like, a lot of people, their health is so bad that they're not going to survive. Like, if you've got medical conditions already, or you're like, it's something you can, if it's something you can be taken care of and you're not, you're putting a huge problem out there for your preparedness plan. You're becoming the biggest liability, or you might currently be the biggest liability. And so it's like, so big picture wise, like that, go fix that. And number two, pay attention to what's going on in the world, because it's like, there's so much that could get you caught off guard. There's so much that could suck you in. There's rabbit holes everywhere that are trying to pull the wool over your eyes in some cases, to give you a false flag, in some cases to just completely confuse you and confound you. I mean, they call it television programming for a reason. It's trying to program you to think a certain way and behave a certain way, primarily to buy a certain way and just be a consumer. But if you're paying attention to what's going on in the world, like we were talking before we jumped on the air, we were talking about FTX and how FTX was money laundering millions and billions of dollars and creating another false fiat currency, another false, coin.
When cryptos and, are supposed to be for the opposite, right? They're supposed to provide more freedom. And, this is not the topic for tonight, but it is part of the big picture. Absolutely.
Right.
It is part of this big picture. And I guess we could start into it there.
Well, I was listening. I don't know if anybody out there has also heard of a channel on YouTube that's fantastic. I know the three of us have, but Really Graceful is a fantastic YouTube channel. If you're interested in really understanding some of these deep dive webs that the wicked globalists are weaving. And she went into this whole thing. It was, I watched 7 or 8 minutes of this whole, where she talked about the FTX, how it is just an absolute money laundering scheme and scam. And it was interesting because Sam Bankman-Fried grew up with somebody who was in a position of political power. This other side business that they had with Alamos, I think, she was the daughter of another politician, and his mom was related to somebody that had something. And then this other guy that was one of his counsels at FTX was like, he was like somebody who had a political agenda with the World Economic Forum, and like all these pieces were coming together where they were all related. It was a bunch of nepotism. And basically what was happening is that FTX would get money from a bunch of different sources and fund and, venture capitalisms. And then what happened is they created a Help Ukraine kind of a corporation. And so Ukraine was, whenever Ukraine got any money, they would use it to buy the Bitcoin and buy the, digital currencies that were easier and quicker and all that stuff. Well, whenever they did a trade or transaction, they would do it in the coin that's called FTT, which is FTX's specific coin. And I don't want to get into the weeds of all the acronyms and everything, but the point is that when Ukraine would use that money that they were receiving from the government, they would use FTX's company, or one of the companies that FTX was working with, and then that money would go back to FTX, that then FTX would then donate back to the Democratic Party to continue the agenda. And I think that Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the head of FTX, he was like one of I think he was the second highest donor for Biden's for Biden, next to George Soros. Oh, so it was George Soros, and then it was Sam Bankman-Fried with FTX. And then it's interesting to me, she kind of pulled it together at the end here. So literally the Democratic Party would give money to Ukraine. Ukraine would then receive that money, and then they would invest it in FTX. FTX would make money on that investment, and then they would give it back to the Democratic Party. So it was a way for the government to get this whole loophole in here and money launder back to them and their party. And she brought it together at the end. And when she said that it's interesting that they go after him right after the primaries are over.
Mm-hmm. Didn't get to testify at all.
He rose to fame. He rose to all this power in such a short period of time. Like literally, I was Binance and Coinbase and Kraken and a couple other exchanges, and then all of a sudden FTX was out of, like, we had celebrities, we had political leaders, we had all kinds of people promoting FTX, and I was like, where did this come from all of a sudden out of nowhere?
Mm-hmm. It just blew in from nowhere, and I think that's the reason why I wanted to bring that up, was because there are things like that going on, have had happened, are currently happening, and will continue to happen. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, a lot of times it's a distraction. I mean, the wicked are going to do what the wicked do, and that's to continue on with their conspiracies, to profit, to racketeer, to have control. And it's like, okay, so what do we as preppers need to really pay attention to? Because you're going to see a lot of things. Like, for example, egg prices still going up. Why? Because there's an egg shortage. Why? Because there was an avian flu issue. There was a bird flu issue, but they were culling more birds than necessary. Exactly. More birds. They're like, oh, these birds could be infected. Let's just kill the whole thing.
Well, if one out of the entire flock, what could be millions of birds, tested false positive with a fake test that doesn't test for anything, something that doesn't really even exist, then they would destroy the entire flock. And so, and it's all on purpose. And that's part of the big picture. And I see how you're trying to weave that in. And, part of the FTX thing that's really opened my eyes is it's not just FTX. It's not just crypto. It's virtually every aspect of the system. Mm-hmm. See, air quotes, the system, corporations, government. This is what they do. And this just exposes wide open, so we can see it, what they're doing in every aspect of corporate America, of government, of big business.
What's interesting is like if you go back to the origin of the food, like the people that are selling chickens, the people that are selling eggs, the people that are selling vegetables, they're not getting paid anymore for their supply right now. It's the middlemen that are making all the money. The middle and final phase groups are the ones that are making all the money. It's a crony capitalism system. Like, capitalism is fantastic, but the crony capitalism that we have in the United States, worldwide, but really in the United States, it is ridiculous. I mean, what have we found out in the last few months? We've had it confirmed that the FBI has been tampering with Twitter and suppressing news and telling them what to flag and what not to flag. Not just there, but also Facebook and anywhere else they can get their grubby little hands in. Mm-hmm. It's way more than what people have wanted to believe or wanted to even open their eyes to. And now that it's coming out, I mean, the Twitter files just keep dumping, and it's more and more information, more and more overload, and you can get sucked into it. But just know that is continuing to go on.
I think as long as what we're trying to do, what my idea was trying to do today is stitch all these events together and really come up with a view of the big picture. It's like puzzle pieces, like, stitching a garment together and seeing what is this really going to look like. We see all these pieces, and that's the hard part, is to see all these. We see all these things every single day, like you say, with the food supply being destroyed. It's definitely intentional on purpose. And like you say, Scott, the corporations are taking advantage of this. It is has been a cop out to say, oh, the big corporations, they're just greedy, and that's absolutely true. That's all they're around is for money. And they are definitely taking advantage of this. We're seeing true inflation, yet part of that is corporate greed as well. And so how does this all connect together, right? What big picture should we be seeing with all these events? A lot of them seem somewhat disconnected, right? They're hard to stitch together. But I think, like you started there with FTX, it gives us a way to start seeing where this might be happening in other places, and then put that put that puzzle together. And it's a very intricate puzzle. It's a very couple thousand piece puzzle. The biggest puzzle I've ever done is about 1,500 pieces, and that takes me weeks with help, right? And this is a couple thousand piece puzzle, if not larger.
Yeah.
Very intricate.
Thousands.
And it's really hard to put together. It takes a lot of time.
It's a web. I was listening to, I don't know for those of you who are out there, I would highly recommend Hillsdale College. They have a fantastic course on the Constitution. And they have a lot of other free courses one of them is about the Great Reset. I'm going to be taking that soon. But last night we did another lesson on the Constitution and the Founding Fathers and how things have changed since that time. And the lesson that I was in talked about how the progressives, as they started to move through government and change the government, they wanted to have more government control over the market. And one of the things the progressives wanted to do was to be able to control the food supply and the food chain by culling or by controlling the supply to match the demand. So if farmers were producing too much food, as they, quote unquote, too much food, that there wasn't enough demand so that the prices could come down, the government's like, oh, no, we can't have that. So they would literally tell these farmers to get rid of certain crops, to burn certain things so that the supply would come down. If a farmer had a really good year, then the price of that good or that particular commodity was going to be actually less because there was an abundance of it. Well, in the marketplace, we can't have that because we got to control it here. And so the government, in their desire to have all these regulatory bodies and all these administrative bodies and all these EPAs and CPDs and all the different nonsense that are not constitutional, by the way, all these 3-letter organizations that are controlling everything, they literally. So when I was listening, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, what did we have this last year? How many cattle ranches? I mean, they all did it in the name of, oh, these cattle got the Rona. Cattle got Rona? The chickens got Rona? They want to hide it. I think personally, this is my opinion now. I think that they're hiding their desire to control the market with these. If they can come up with some excuse that people will believe, they'll use that to cover their tracks, so to speak, of what they're really trying to do, which to me is the big picture. To me is there's a group of people that want to have a tyrannical leadership over our country and over the world. And with all the different one world religion that we this last year, we had all the religions of the world, the major religions of the world came together and created a headquarters. And I think it's in Saudi Arabia or somewhere. I don't remember.
Over the Middle East somewhere, yeah.
If you think about what the big picture is, it's like, wait a minute. All of these little pieces start leading back to this tyranny and this Marxism and this wanting to control everybody and have power over people and take away our agency and take away our freedoms, which we know is and always has been the devil's plan.
Yeah, we've got to take at face value what they're telling us. So look back to Lord Rothschild, right? He said, "I care not who makes you laws. Just give me control over the money, right? Currency in particular." We've also heard, "You'll own nothing and you'll be happy." Right? We got to believe them for face value for what they're saying. And so, what does that really mean? I think most people who hear that, it just kind of rolls off their shoulder. Okay, they kind of laugh it off. No, they're extremely serious about this. You will own nothing by 2030, and they will own everything, and you'll rent everything from them. They'll have complete control and power over them. And then also, like you're saying about the food supply, I'm trying to remember who it was who said this, but control the food, control the people. And the saying is much more in depth than that. But through money, through food, and through call them laws, whether unconstitutional laws, whatever. We've seen that creep for 100+ years, since well before I was born. And all of these, we've got to, like I say, we got to take these at face value and take them seriously, and not just say, this won't go anywhere. That's ridiculous. No, it's been happening for a long time, and we're in trouble. We're in big trouble right now.
So Henry Kissinger is the one that I equate that quote to. He who controls the food supply controls the people. That was like 1974. Knowing that if you can control the food, you control how people will vote, how people will purchase, what people will do, if they'll stand up and rise and fight or not, right? And so what we're coming into is they've been practicing that for 60 years. if not longer.
And they're switching us out from real food to fake food, to engineered, manufactured food that is going to kill us even faster.
Well, what's interesting is like plant-based meat, right?
Plant-based.
That
highly processed
first
plant-based.
wave of that was this plant-based meat, and it's what's funny is the plants that they use are the plants that don't want you to eat them, and so they make you sick to begin with, and so then your body can't process those types of proteins, so you're really not getting any of the nutrition out of it anyways. In fact, you're causing more medical problems down the road, and then now it's all synthesized, right? It's all synthesized. It's like my parents used to watch Star Trek like crazy, and I remember, wow, that would be so cool if I could have a food synthesizer that would just be like, yes, I'd like a shepherd's pie. Boom, here's your shepherd's pie. I would like a T-bone steak. Boom, here.
Or take a pill to grow a kidney, right?
I'm like, holy crap, this is what they're trying to do. And then none of it is even remotely real. Like, it's all just garbage. Just all, just look at the ingredients on any food you go buy, anything from the store. It's just insane what they're putting in there. Stuff you can't even pronounce. And some guy's like, oh no, this is good for you. And he won't eat
absolute poisons. And, if I could recommend anything for people to go and look at the Ice Age Farmers YouTube channel, he has not put anything on there for months and months. It's coming up on a year. So I don't know where he's at. I'm concerned for him. He is always putting out a lot of good content, but it's been several months. But essentially, what he shows and he teaches is that it's their agenda to say, oh, look at these dirty animals. There have been, reports, fake reports saying, oh, look, the dirt, it's dirty. It's nasty. It's terrible for you. It can cause, of course, they're blaming everything, all the heart issues on everything. Dirt, they're causing on the weather and on pretty much everything. So they're causing it's a propaganda scheme where they're conditioning us and those who can't think, who don't think for themselves, to think that, oh, animals are dirty, we shouldn't be eating them, and everybody can of course have their opinion on that, but it's what's the way that the world has been run for thousands of years. And now, okay, just in this past decade, let's change that. Let's flip that, because they were wrong for thousands of years. No, it's an agenda, and it is affecting everyone's minds, including this bug thing. Have you seen that celebrities pitching, eating bugs? It's unbelievable. And if you just brush that off like, oh, this is nothing, this will never go anywhere, then it's your fault if it goes somewhere.
Somebody was saying, I was watching some guy talk about how much sugar we've eaten and now we consume over the last 100 years or so, that we used to eat maybe a half a pound of sugar a year. And now we're eating hundreds of pounds,
almost a half pound of sugar a day.
Yeah. And so it's like
3 to 6 cups of sugar a year. And now it's 3 to 6 cups of sugar a day.
Yeah. And that,
how many sodas and such. Yeah.
So let's put that together. Sugar, we all know that the sugar spikes insulin. Insulin spikes means that, for lack of getting into a bunch of medical issues here, spikes in insulin create over time the insulin dependence. And there's a whole bunch of opportunities there for resistance and other things and other ailments and illnesses. But diabetes is one of the biggest problems we have in the world today, and also cardiovascular disease. When you get so much sugar in there, the heart, the sugar gets you're pumping, your adrenaline pumping. And so you get heart disease. If you have a nation or a country or people that is dependent upon diabetic insulins and drugs for heart disease, and then all of a sudden you control the blood supply, the pharmaceutical supplies, you start controlling all of those things, you can take away their freedoms all day long, but you got to give me my pills. I'll give you whatever you take. Just give me my pills. I got to live. I got to stay alive. So the big picture on that, in my opinion, is the food supply has been tampered with for decades. Now, somebody might say, well, that was 1974 and they haven't done anything yet. Really? That's why we're talking. They have done things yet. And some of that is they needed to dumb us down first by giving us improper nutrition. And that usually
fluoride in the water.
And dumbing down takes more than one generation. You can't just dumb me down in my lifetime. You got to dumb me down so that when I have kids, My kids are dumber. And, so, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like that takes generational dumbing down. That's why it took 100 years for these guys to do it. These guys have been playing the long game, and we're just doing our thing, thinking everything's great. And they're leading us right over the cliff.
It's like the same fragility that's built into our electronics, everything runs on the internet. The internet goes down, it's the country shuts down. And same with the power grid. Power goes down, people die. Same, like you say, with pharmaceuticals. There are so many people dependent on these things. And for the most part, they're harmful. They don't cure anything. Pharmaceuticals are not medicine. They're sorcery is what it is. Real food is what medicine is. And so our minds, exactly, our way of thinking, what we've been conditioned to think for years and years, for my entire life, is absolutely wrong. So I look at everything, like they say, I'm the apocalyptimist here, or the, I have the most pessimistic, I think, out of any of it, because I don't know if I'm just looking more, but that's kind of why I brought this topic up and wanted to talk about with you guys. Is I know, Paris, you're more optimistic than I am. Scott, you're kind of right there in the middle, and I want to try and stitch this picture together for everyone to see how much trouble we really are in at this very moment. Right? There you go. Apocalyptimist. There we go.
One of the reasons, so let's just talk about why I'm more optimistic, or why you feel, I don't know why you feel I'm more optimistic, because some days I feel like I'm moving more towards you are than you are towards me.
Doomsday. So therefore, because you're less doomsday, you're more optimistic.
So let me talk a little bit about that. Number one, I think that there's a couple things and there's probably more, but just off the top of my head, a couple things that I want to say. The first thing is knowledge, understanding what's really going on, what the world, powers that be, so to speak, are really doing, and how deep that can go. So for me, when I first started learning about what was going on with globalists and with everything that's going on in the world, I was overwhelmed, and it was way too much. And I spent a lot of time, actually in the fetal position, sucking my thumb, asking for mom, you know what I mean? And then I started to realize, what can I do about this? Because Christ is all powerful. And if it's true, if the scriptures that say, I can do all things in Christ, which strengtheneth me, if that is true, and if Christ overcomes and is overpowerful, I have a faith in Christ, in Jesus Christ, I have a strong faith in him. I mean, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go figure out there's got to be a solution. There's got to be a way to get over this and get around it. And then I started prepping, I started learning, I started teaching, I started gathering, I met you guys, and we've chatted, we've kind of helped each other with things. And then, so I had that optimistic, like, no, dude, there's a solution, and we can find it, and we can get ready for it, and we can be prepared for it as much as possible. And I'll be honest with you, in the last couple of years, though, maybe in the last year and change, there's been a little bit of a grind that I've been feeling. And I'm like, you know what? The grind is not as fun. So this podcast really gives me a lot of hope, gives me a lot of optimism again. And I'm a realist. I'm more realist than I think I am just pure optimist anymore, because I'm realizing, you know what? There's going to be some hard stuff that we're going to have to go through. And I know that if I'm close to God and I'm close to Jesus Christ, I will make it through. However, it's going to suck eggs. Like I just imagine the Marine Corps, and I'm not a Marine Corps, so I apologize if anybody's offended by this, but I was not in the Marine Corps, and I didn't serve in the armed forces, but I love you guys. Thank you so much for your service. But I just love what the Marine Corps says: embrace the suck. And it's going to suck. Let's just embrace it and keep moving forward, because there's a way out if we just put our head down and go for it. So that's kind of my optimism / realism.
And I love what you said there, being a realist. And that's, I think, again, kind of what I'm hoping to get out of this is, let's try and figure out what's really going on, what the real is. The shroud is pulled over our eyes. We're looking through a glass darkly. We don't see everything, like I think we should, for what it truly is. But it takes a deep dive down into the conspiracies and the secret combinations, the dark stuff that most of us want to avoid. And most of the people I know who are positive, they want to avoid that. They don't want to think about that, which is fine. leave that to me, right? Leave that to us to do those deep dives, or leave that to certain people. But you've also got to, and I don't know how to express this, but you've got to take it with faith. I don't want to call it faith for something that's so negative, right? But
let me wrap it all together then.
If you understand the scriptures and you believe what's coming, then again, that's where the optimist comes in. The apocalyptimist comes in. But go ahead, Scott. What were you going to say?
Well, let me wrap it together for you. And these aren't my words. These are Isaiah's words. Isaiah is my favorite place to read. My favorite.
He's awesome.
Other than in my hierarchy of reading, anything directly about Jesus Christ, his words first. Boom. Wow. But then again, he says, whether it's my voice or the voice of my servants, it is the same. I love the way Isaiah writes, explains things. And so in Isaiah 54, 17 is like the clincher for righteousness, that no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. But let me jump back a few verses, because this is where it gets holy crap. This is the goosebumps, guys. This is the power that is God, that is fighting for us, fighting for you, fighting for your family, fighting for your ability to try to be righteous. Okay, starting verse 14. In righteousness shalt thou be established. Thou shalt be far from oppression, for thou shalt not fear, and from terror, for it shall not come near thee. Behold, they shall surely gather together, but not by me. Whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for thy sake. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment, thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. So what does that tell us to do? It tells us not to fear. It tells us to be strong. It tells us to gather together in faith, so that those that are gathering against us shall fall for our sake. And that what they're doing, their works, they're conspiring, the weapons they're forging against thee, the new money, the new food, the fake food, all this stuff, it's all going to explode and destroy itself. And the wicked will go down. Everyone talks about the apocalypse and they're like, oh crap, when the crap hits the fan, it's like, you know which side of the fan you're on, right? I'm on the fan I'm on the side, we're on the side, if we're righteous and faithful, we're on the side throwing the crap at the fan, at the wicked. That's the side we're on.
That's a cool perspective.
All the crap that they're dishing up and piling up, we're just gonna be like, oh, here's the fan. And it's gonna go right at them. Why? Yep. Because that's the promise of the Lord. Is it gonna be ugly and disgusting? It's gonna smell, of course, right?
Right. It's poop.
It's hard to stay clean when you're digging through poo. Things aren't going to be perfect. They're not perfect now. I don't know anyone who's living in the la la land. The reality is it's going to get bad for everybody, but it's going to get the worse for the wicked. And the righteous, we will prosper through it. And what you don't understand, or what a lot of people don't think about is the story of, I think it was Elijah. Yeah, it was Elijah. And the widow, she lost her husband. She had her child. It was her and her child. Elijah shows up and he's like, give me something to eat. And she's like, but I can't. I was just about to make our last morsel of bread, and then we were both going to go die somewhere. And he says, woman, feed me first, and you shall never go without. It will her promise was that
shall not waste.
Yeah, veil shall not waste. She had the wheat and she had the oil until times got good again. It never went away. It was always, every time she'd scoop it out, there was more there.
I believe in those miracles. Amen.
Absolutely.
Those miracles.
But you have to have that meal.
You have to have the faith. You have to do the best you can with what you have. And you have to be willing to give it to the Lord. And if you're not willing to do those three things, you're not doing those three things, there's no promise.
It's not as strong anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just give my last 2 cents before we end here. Part that what you read that stood out to me is that because that people are gathering against it. Those who gather against thee, they are gathered against us. What does that mean? What's another word for gathering against someone or a country? It's a war.
Yep.
Right. We are at war with principalities, against. How does that verse go? What that's in Ephesians, I believe, isn't it?
The powers of darkness in high places.
Yes. And so we are at war. And I think we need to realize that we are at war in every way imaginable, spiritually, as well as physically, although it's not a shooting war at this point, right? It may get there, but we're at war with these people, and we have to treat it like that. And we have to fight back with, with everything we have. And when it comes to war, there's no rules, sure there's the Geneva Convention and so forth, those types of rules, but you got to fight dirty when it comes to survival. And what that means dirty wise, I'm not entirely sure, because we don't fight dirty. We fight spiritually, right?
Well, you at least have to be able to defend against those who are fighting dirty. And so you have to know what fighting dirty is so that you can be aware and ready of it, and you're not blindsided by the attack.
Good aspect, yeah.
I think that's important in my last couple of minutes, is just to remember that in a war, to continue that, Shane, in a war, casualties are real. And that means you die. And casual people become casualties. And so if you want to have, and you want to understand what's going on in the world, you've got to understand the big picture. However, you don't get to the big picture until you start seeing some of these little things that they're doing, because you can see this. Yeah, you can say the globalists want to take over the world. Well, how are they doing it? Well, they're doing it by these small, subtle, little movements that they're making that are almost indistinguishable or undetectable by those who don't have eyes to see and don't have ears to hear. And they're just they're sliding stuff past us, sliding stuff through, and we're not even aware of it because we're not paying attention, because we're being too casual. And we're eventually going to become casualties. Righteousness is created by, one, understanding, knowledge. Intelligence is the glory of God. So we need to become more intelligent. We need to work diligently for that. And we need to act. We need to, what we know, we need to then do, and then we can become what we need to be in order for us to be saved. And repentance is a huge part of that. And we're not going to get into a preaching section here, but I'm telling you that if you want to have some great things in your life, get as clean as possible as you can, spiritually and emotionally and physically even, and then work to develop those things that are the most important, that bring the most value. And hopefully one of the things that's most valuable is our podcast and what we do to help you understand what's going on. Hopefully you guys got something out of this podcast, because I felt like it was a good one.
Well said, Paris.
Well said. Very, very well said. I want to go back and read Ephesians 6:12 for everybody.
There we go.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Yep.
Do the work. Do the work. Get with God. We are Prepper Talk Radio. We're all about God, family, and country. Get with God to protect your family and your country. Pay attention to what's going on out there. Connect the dots. This episode's all about connecting the dots. Connect the dots and you'll understand. You'll see things in a different way, in a bigger and better understanding. And it will eliminate the fear. It will eliminate the panic and replace it with confidence. What real faith is. Faith is confidence that the Lord's promises will all be fulfilled. Yeah, there's going to be casualties. But I'd rather be a casualty and then start being a destroying angel on the other side to help all of you and know what's coming than to have not been prepared and not be eligible for that. So guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Make sure that you're following our YouTube page. Most of all, we're going to be giving away some really cool stuff there. We're going to give that Jase case away. So get your 5 antibiotics as well as a 5-ounce piece of silver as soon as we break 1,000 subscribers there. Make sure you join our Facebook group. Make sure you're following us on all the socials and subscribing to our podcast, because we are here for you. Our next episode, every Wednesday night, we do a live episode. Make sure you're joining in those. We broadcast those live from our YouTube page. If you're subscribed, it'll notify you. So turn on those notifications. It'll notify you when we're live. And we want to hear your input as well and topic ideas and things that you want to know about. We'll focus on that for the next episode. Till then, stay ready-minded.
Take care.
See you next time.